You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 79 of the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. She wants it that way. She is writer, dog mom, TV personality, Jessica Szilagyi.
Are you going to tell people why you said that?
Well, I was going to ask you, we're actually recording this early this week, not that it's going to drop any earlier, but we're recording early this week. And what was your conflict?
My scheduling conflict is that I'm going to the Backstreet Boys concert, and so I'm not able to record at our usual time because the Backstreet Boys take priority. Yep. Been waiting at least 20 years for this moment.
For this moment.
Not on the podcast.
So they're going to jump off the poster on the wall and be right there in front of you.
Literally, we have fourth row tickets, so.
Oh.
It's going to be a big night.
I mean, are you going to fire some stuff at the stage?
I don't know. I'm not one of those people that stands with my phone up while I'm at a concert, so I just plan on taking it all in the entire time, just enjoying the moment. And I'm not going to wear butterfly clips and glitter pants like I would have in the 5th and 6th grade, but internally I will be vibing with my butterfly clips and glitter pants.
Well, yeah, that's pretty stupid to go to a live show and then look at a live show through a 3-inch screen.
It drives me nuts that people do it, though. I mean, nobody wants to see your video, first of all, of your live show. And second, unless someone is on stage and, getting some sort of recognition or something, put your phone down. Just be present in the moment. Enjoy it.
Look, if you want a picture,
right?
I mean, of you at the show, okay. Spend 10 seconds, get a picture of yourself at the show. But the audio sucks. No one's going to watch it.
It's like fireworks.
Yeah.
No one wants to see your fireworks either, friends.
Well, that depends. Now, if you're drunk and blow your hand off, I'm in.
Sure. That's personal, though. I don't want to see your fireworks show at the park or wherever you're watching. I'm not interested.
Yeah, and there have actually been some performers that have not been big fans of that and have told people, put your phones away. We're up here doing this.
Right. I agree with that. Not interested in having them banned, though. Just, tell people to be decent.
Tell them to be decent. Ah,
decent.
Wow.
I was asking a lot.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a good time. I mean, it's not like it's going to be, they play a bunch of instruments and they don't know how to play it. I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be a good show. They'll dance around and, be good clowns for you.
That's right. It's good for the soul.
Absolutely. I'm old. I want to see bands like Chicago.
I mean, I like
I wanted to catch
all of this.
I wanted to catch Neil Diamond before he retired.
But you didn't?
I didn't. He retired due to health things because he's, old as dirt.
That happens.
It does, but I did catch Rush several times before they retired, which is Canadian rock. There are only several gods in Canada: Rush, Wayne Gretzky, and beer. I did go to a Rush concert with some Canadian friends, and one of them showed up wearing blue jeans, a denim shirt, and a denim jacket. I mean, he showed up at a Rush show in a Canadian tuxedo. It was amazing, and he didn't know he did it. He just dressed.
I mean...
So, speaking of the Backstreet Boys and things I'd rather kill myself than go to, New Jersey doctors can help terminally ill patients die beginning today, but not so fast. The courts, and Jessica, you're more versed on this than I am. Well, not suicide, but on this particular story, have stepped in saying there's no guidelines in place for administering life-ending drugs.
Yeah, I saw this story come up, and I saw that there was an injunction on the implementation of the law, and most people would think that it had to do with, the constitutionality of it, or that there was some sort of concern over what, the fact that maybe there was a loophole that wasn't closed, pretty much what we see everywhere else. But actually it was that the state had not given enough directives on how doctors can assist their patients in taking their own lives, ending their lives if they're terminally ill. I'm just baffled that I don't know. I guess there was a lag between the time when it passed and when it was implemented, and the state was supposed to put all these things in place. But I mean, what all does it entail? I mean, how much can really be necessary to administer a life-ending drug?
As many ODs that happen, I mean, I think it's pretty simple.
So,
but, I mean, what do I know?
Well, but doctors, pharmacists, the mental health professionals, and there was one other class, they were supposed to have rules and regulations set by the Department of Health that tell them, who must report when a drug is administered. I mean, only a medical doctor can, but I guess obviously there's mental health oversight and a pharmacist that administers it. So there was supposed to be some sort of streamlined process about who reports to the state and when a patient actually dies. Again, I don't feel like that's that complicated of a process. I mean, the final person who hands the medication to the patient should be the one reporting. And then if you want to have a check and balance, then have the pharmacist report how many prescriptions the doctor wrote and cross-check. And sounds like, I mean, aside from if you have ethical issues with this, or you're in favor of it for ethical reasons, or whatever it may be, this is just a very odd reason to halt assisted suicide of all things. I mean, I want them to be thorough if government's gonna be involved, I want them to be thorough, but the problem is there's not enough regulation, just like always.
Right. Well, and that's where I was gonna go to is you don't get to this point because you had a bummer of a day. This is people who are in pain, terminal, and much like the I hate to draw this comparison, the medical marijuana here in Georgia this is meant to bring relief to those who need it. And over-regulating it, and of course, if we're going to have it, say, you've got whatever the standard is, 3 doctors or whatever, say, look, this is terminal, this person's in a lot of pain, this magic pill they're going to have in their possession, and when it becomes too much, that's their ticket out. It does seem odd that the state didn't get enough involved is the reason why the state can't allow you to have what I think is the most personal of decisions of one's life, which is to end it.
And part of me wonders if this is a ploy to not actually have it take effect.
And we're going to discuss more of government employees in upcoming shows on that aspect. And I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I mean, I know. Let me tell you why you're wrong. You're right. But
Obviously.
if a judge goes in with a prejudice and says he believes that suicide is wrong and immoral, he is capable of finding a legal reason to block it. And that's, one of the scary things about judges. One of the best explanations of this I've ever heard was Gorsuch explaining how he rules in the courtroom, which is you leave all your beliefs at the kitchen table. And you go into every case completely open-minded, and you only rule on the facts of the case. So and I'm not saying that's what this judge did, because I don't know. But if you go in with a prejudice that suicide is wrong, yeah, you can go and find some precedent to reinforce your position if you don't go into that courtroom with a clean slate and listen to the facts of the case and only rule on the facts of the case.
Well, it seems like this is one of those issues that I feel like obviously isn't at the forefront. It's not usually on campaign mailers. It's not brought up in debates. It's not a decisive issue, but people have very strong opinions on this. And if you look at, I think there's 7 states total that allow this, including New Jersey, if you include them, since they're not actually doing it. But it only squeaked out by 1 vote in the Senate, and they're already trying to repeal it. So, I would not be surprised if there wasn't either some regret about casting a vote or...
Yeah,
I don't know. But that would bring me back to the point that if that is true, then shame on them, because regardless of how you feel about the bill, you're elected to cast votes and make decisions and make difficult decisions, and playing political chess is not.
Yeah, well, it's. I think that is the biggest barrier to assisted suicide is the elected official side of it. Is I've got to go back to my constituents, and there's a large portion of the population that's against it. I go back to I don't agree with. There's a story a while ago of a person, I think it was a girl, taking her life because she was never going to be right again because she was abused as a child, and she was like 22 years old. There was nothing medically wrong with her, but she had some trauma in her life, and she took a very permanent solution to a temporary problem. So, how you apply that, but it's a very personal decision for people who are in horrible, horrible pain. And it is something that no one should take lightly, and certainly physicians should not take lightly. I don't know. It's a person.
But it's also something that you're exactly right. It's personal, and I don't think it's something that any of us could ever understand unless we're facing it. And
God willing, none of us will. So
right.
Once again.
And there's always room for abuse. But if you look at the data that's out there, even in the states where, Oregon has been the leader for a very long time because they were the first. They have fewer than 200 a year.
And people move even to now, Oregon for this.
Several. Right. And even then, you still have such a low number. This isn't... I understand there's always room for abuse. You will not hear anybody... I will not be that person that tells you that's not true. But looking at the numbers, in Washington State, it's like a little over 150. that's something that was given considerable thought.
Right, and doctors are not that quick to violate their Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm.
That's right.
And they have to, the doctor who's prescribing these medications have to decide, are they doing harm? If you've got somebody who's terminal and in a lot of pain, if they believe that's part of that falls in line with the Hippocratic oath, that's a very tough litmus test. Am I causing harm? And in the case of someone who is terminal with excruciating pain, no, you're giving relief. Yeah, I don't know. But the goal of the story wasn't to get into the debate of assisted suicide, but that the state has decided, that the judicial branch in particular has decided to insert themselves for very odd reasons, and it seems to be their personal reasons on assisted suicide.
Right. It's sad.
It is. It is for the folks that need this. And like you said, if people move to Oregon for this reason, and there's 150 to 200 a year, which is, yes, if you want to say 150 people losing their lives, but statistically very, very, very small. And it seems that the doctors are doing a good job in Oregon by not handing it out willy-nilly.
Sure. Maybe we'll come back to that.
Yeah, I don't see that coming in Georgia. I mean,
oh, hell no.
I've been around the awful people at these party meetings and stuff, and they don't care about ending anybody's suffering. They're going to stick to their guns on stuff, and I don't see any elected officials saying, I'm going to sacrifice myself, so to speak, on the political altar to push something that could be morally and ethically correct, because it won't get them elected again. We are introducing a new segment this week. We're going to call it the Very Inventive Community Spotlight. Ooh. And where we've been is we tend to focus on the negative and scream about get back in your box, but there are a lot of good things going on in various communities by a lot of good people, and I can't say it's going to be a weekly thing just because of schedules, but we want to make sure that on the show that we're bringing in really good people who are doing really good things. And our inaugural really good person doing really good things is Robin Stern. Robin, I'm glad to have you, buddy.
Thanks.
As if I don't see you 8 times a week around the community and at the Chamber of Commerce. Robin is the owner of I Love My Geek, and that's an LUV. He spearheaded a charity, Be Better, Not Bitter, which is run through the Boys and Girls Club, and I believe was recently appointed to the board of the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, that's correct, Dave.
Well, Robin, we are really excited to have you on the show.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you thinking of me, and I don't do what I do for any accolades, but when somebody notices every now and then, it makes you look back at what you've done and say, oh, wow, I guess I have done something pretty cool. So I appreciate you pointing that out to me, because I kind of get my head down and go and don't think anything about what's going on except how many kids I can help,
And what was the genesis of the Be Better movement?
Okay, so I have my best friend in the whole world. About 25 years we were together, and he came up with this, why can some people take the things that life throws at them and come out of it and rise, and other people take the things that life throws at them and they just get sucked into a black hole, an abysmal, situation that they never can seem to get out of. Some people can be better, and some people are just bitter. And he had an actual example of it in his life. He had 2 daughters, and one of them had a boyfriend that got involved in a lot of bad things and could never get out of it. He just kept saying how horrible the world treated him, and his life was miserable because of everybody else, and he wound up in jail. And the other daughter had a young man who he went through his same share of stuff and his same share of things, but he decided to come out of it. He's now married to her. He has an EMT license. He works for managing a roofing company, and he has his own line of clothing for hunters that he's got out there called Down to Hunt. So if you want to check out some cool hunting clothes, he's got really cool designs, and downtohunt.com. Anyway, I digress. So the kids really kind of were the genesis of it. We saw, same situation, same household, totally different outcomes, and we kind of put that thought together. My buddy Ronnie, his name was Ronnie Van Gelder, he wanted to produce hats, bumper stickers, T-shirts with the saying on it, "Be better, not bitter." That was, telling people in the world and kind of spreading the word. And I had a different thought. I wanted to maybe try and do something to give back to the community. Being a computer guy, obviously, it revolved around something technical. So after many, many years of working on this, I got a box in the mail one day, had some T-shirts in it with a logo on it. They were really cool. So Ronnie had gotten somebody to do some designs and printed up some shirts, and I got them. And that's about as far as it went for a while. And then I got a really, really bad phone call on Friday the 13th, believe it or not. And I was told that he had been killed in a car accident. So having sucked all that up in a Friday the 13th, I don't know if anybody else has ever had that good of a Friday the 13th, but I had to be the poster child for the movement now. So Be Better, Not Bitter was actually launched. It became a genesis of you have to be a corporation in this state to be a nonprofit. I guess the IRS, you have to be a corporation to be a nonprofit. So we incorporated the name, and then we became a nonprofit about a month later. And I had all these computers that I'd been collecting in my computer business. And I had always thought someday I was going to teach kids how to fix computers. That was going to be my Be Better, Not Bitter give back. I wanted to do something. And so the computer thing seemed like the right thing. Well, long story short, Snowmageddon came around. I had no students. I didn't know where I was going to teach, but getting snowed in on 61 South down by Paulding County High School, I decided to walk home. And since I live over by the sheriff's office, I came right down the road where the Boys and Girls Club is. And had that little voice in my head say, "There's your students." Didn't think nothing of it. I was cold, wet, walking in the snow and slush. So a month or two later, I called up the Boys and Girls Club and I said, "Hey, I have this program. I want to bring it to your club, and I need some kids that want to learn about computers." And they lost their minds. They were super excited. They had just had a construction trailer donated out back, and it was hooked up with nice cold air conditioning, and they were using it for storage. So guess what? We had a classroom, we had kids, and we had something moving, but Be Better, Not Bitter doesn't really talk about that. Be Better, Not Bitter doesn't really say what technologically movement for kids training. So we wanted to come up with a name for that. And that's a whole nother story. But the program March for Tech is the program that we take to the Boys and Girls Club in Paulding. Every summer, we go 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. So it's almost a full college class worth of hours. And these kids tear apart computers. They take every piece out of the box. We put it all back in. They learn what everything does, how it interacts with the other parts. And basically we're giving them the little finger hold into technology. That it's not scary. It's more than a button on the outside of a box. There's something in there that's making it happen, and this is how it happens. We're trying to show these kids that you can be more than just a McDonald's or something like that. That's a good job for a teenager in school, but you got to get something else. And we're trying to excite them and motivate them into the world of technology, no matter what it may be. But if this is a jumping off point, then we've accomplished our mission.
Now, at the end of their program, they walk away with a computer. Correct.
All the computers we get are donated. We've recently implemented some fundraising programs and gotten some very nice donors who have been more than generous, and so we've been able to buy some of the computers as well. So all the kids come and they get a really decent computer. We don't give them garbage. These aren't throwaways. These are if I was to tell off the numbers, people would say, "Wow, my computer isn't that good." So let's just needless to say, they're decent computers with the latest technology in them. And yes, each kid gets a toolkit that's been donated by Home Depot. The license key on the computer that they're getting is being practically donated by Microsoft. We use all of Google's features. They donate everything to Be Better, Not Bitter for us to have all the Google tools are available to us, including a lot of advertising that they allow us to do for free. So we have tried to expand the program, and eventually we hope it goes into Atlanta fully, which is about 27 clubs, and then spring off from that nationally, where there's over 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs.
And that is a huge vision forward with it. I mean, The step one in any successful venture is a plan.
Well, a BHAG, right? If you're a corporate guy, a BHAG is a big, hairy, audacious goal. So you got to have some stars to shoot for, and you set them out there, and like I said, you put your head down and hammer it to the metal and see where it goes. So we've just, Dave, I'm not really pushing to do anything with this. I have a for-profit business, and I love my geek is a huge part of what I do, but it allows me the time as the business owner to be able to do the work on the nonprofit. But I will tell you that we have hooked up with so many people along the way, just being patient and watching it happen. We ran into some guys that do a franchising company. And that franchising company is exactly what we need, because we need to put together a turnkey operation if we're going to expand it to 4,000 Boys and Girls Clubs. So we're working with them. They're pro bono in their time to be able to help us put together something, all the documentation, the curriculum, the software, the hardware, everything that has to happen onto a big pallet and shrink wrap it and send it to a club. So we've kind of already got the system in place, and we know what it's going to look like to reproduce it. Now it's just a matter of getting it out there and getting the funds coming in. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of money to make it happen, but we have a plan for that too.
And I was actually impressed talking to your son about the accountability factor that you have with these kids. That
Well,
they are held accountable, and they have a strong role model in that.
Well, that's a big part of it, Dave. The computer's really a carrot. We're trying to get these kids in here because a lot of these kids, they just don't have anybody in their life that says, hey, you matter. Their parents are killing themselves to try and make it happen. They're probably single moms a lot, and they're really trying to make a home for their kids, and they just have the time. So when somebody steps up and says, hey, you know what? I'm not here because the judge ordered me to be here. I'm here because I think you matter, and I care about you, and I want you to have this information so your life can be better. That says a lot to them. And then I hold them to it. We issue them lanyards with name tags. If they don't have them with them every day, they can't come to class. That's part of work. If you don't have your badge, you don't go to work, right? So they have to have their lanyards and name tags every day. We had over 40 kids apply this year, and we only had 14 spots. So we had to do a little bit of weeding out, which I hate to do, but the ones that showed up every day and had a great attitude and really wanted to be there, came back from the breaks faster, the ones that were really involved, those are the ones that got picked. So I hate doing that. I wish I could take every single kid in and give them the exposure to the technology so they had that opportunity in their lives. But you know what? There's not enough space right now. So I'll lead that into, they put me on the board of directors at the Boys and Girls Club now. And I have a vision, folks. We need to raise about $50 million to build a new Boys and Girls Club in Paulding County. So come on, open the wallets and let's make that happen.
Will you take a check? $50 million? Is that?
Your wife works at the bank, Dave. I would gladly take a check, sir. If you write it, then it might be good with her behind you. Anyway, yeah, you know what? We have all kinds of information out there. The website is BBNB. That's for your military guys. Bravo, Bravo, November, Bravo.org. And there's a donate button right on the main page. I had so many people that wanted to give money, and they said, how do I give money? And I wanted to give it easy way to do that. So you click on that, it's right there. We're BBNB INC on Facebook. You can click donate on Facebook. They actually don't take any of the money. PayPal gets a little bit of it for the transaction, but Facebook, they process the transaction for free. So if you want to go to Facebook and look up Be Better Not Bitter, we'd be glad to, take that donation and put it to good use. So we're gearing up now for a big fundraiser in March, which after the summer, it sounds funny to say in March when we're still in August, but after the summer season's over, everything moves towards the next year. So in corporate America, that's the way you have to work.
Well, and you talked about your for-profit business, and just since I've known you, how much that business has grown in footprint and going into a brick and mortar. And it is impressive that you can go from being a computer guy in your basement to having a brick and mortar and being out front in the community.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Dave. Yeah, we've been in Paulding County for over a decade, almost 13 years now. And actually, end of August is when we moved here, so it'll be 13 years. And I just ran the business myself. I just wanted to have fun, fix computers and helping people out. And we started building a Google presence right off the bat. And so over the years, we've been able to build up quite a good reputation on Google, which now makes or breaks a business. And my son came along about 3 years ago and said, hey, what you got going on there? So my 22-year-old son's been working with me now for 3 years. Tyler is running the store. which we opened in January. Now that's it. With the plug again, 4707 Dallas Ackworth Highway, right across the street from JC's Auto, diagonally from Rodney's. If anybody's on the other side of town, you just hit Due West Road, and when you get to the end of it in Paulding County, we're right there on your right. So, we have a great system there, a great service. You can walk in and get your computer fixed and buy a used computer. We don't sell new. We don't want to contribute to the carbon footprint. So we sell strictly refurbished computers. We're a licensed Microsoft refurbisher. We're a Google partner. We got all these good things in place. And, Dave, when you're just going out to help people, it just kind of comes back to you. It's been paying off pretty well for us, and we're very grateful for it.
Well, especially when an old air conditioning guy can just hand you his iPad, go, I don't know what's wrong with it. Or not iPad, the MacBook, and go, I don't know. Here, fix it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just tell me how much. Fix it. And it's always been done right. And I've certainly appreciated the service I've gotten and getting to know you. And you're an amazing 22-year-old kid that doesn't talk down to old people like me about technology.
Well, yeah, we really pride ourselves on that. We train these guys. I have another 22-year-old guy. They run the store, Josh and Tyler. And those two guys are trained to speak, kindly and with total respect to every customer, because that's their bread and butter. That's their dinner. So they both very, very respectful young men. And I think having this job and having that forward exposure to the public has caused them to have to be even better than they would have been if they had been working somewhere in the back and didn't have to deal with people every day. But they're great kids. Go read some of our Google reviews. You'll see what I'm talking about. I don't have to say it. My customers say it for me. And Dave, honestly, we really just are here to help people. Right before this interview, I got a single mom. She's a woman in her 60s who adopted 3 African-American kids when they were babies. They're now all teenagers, and she's coming to me to get computers for them for school. I wound up giving her 2 of them. She just didn't have the budget for it. So they gave me what they could, and we gave them what they needed. And then I said, I'll fix the old one you had, and I won't charge you for that. And I got another new one here that, it's going to work. It's not one I would sell, but it'll work great for what you need it for. And I was there until 7:20 this evening, hauling butt to get back here and have this interview with you.
Well, Robin, we certainly appreciate it. And I kind of stepped all over Jessica in the interview because I know you so well, and we've known each other for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm sorry, Jessica.
Oh, no, I was happy to have you on. So thank you for sharing what you do with us.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you guys having this here and letting me come on and flap my gums.
Well, Robin, thank you very much, and you and I will see each other in the morning.
All right, yeah, Dave, I'll see you about 8:15.
All right.
Take care.
As a reminder, these are our opinions and not necessarily those of All on Georgia or any sane, rational purpose. Words are hard. There's a financing chokehold for private prisons over border crisis. 8 banks have publicly committed to ending their future financing relationships with private prison industry, including Core Civic and GEO Group. Together, these 8 banks represent an estimated $2.35 billion with a B, or 87.4% of the credit lines and term loans that are central to these companies' operations.
Oh boy, this one really gets me. This really gets me going. We have not talked about private prisons on this show, really, I don't believe. And I think maybe like in passing, but not at length. Do you have a position?
I do. And I am for privatizing just about everything. However, if you're going to deprive someone of liberty, the onus is on the state. It's on the state.
Okay, I'm really glad to hear that, because I was going to sever the business ties if you had a different opinion on this, because it's one of my pillar issues that I don't compromise on. So
no,
I'm really glad to hear that.
And you find that these companies donate money to politicians. Well, and on its face value is nothing wrong other than these politicians pass laws that put people in prison. It'd be like me giving money to politicians telling them to force homeowners to buy new air conditioners every year because it profits me.
Right. And time again, I mean, it just happened in Georgia. I think earlier this year we had a report come out that said at the state level that these these private prisons are not more cost efficient than the state-run prisons. The same thing is true at the federal level. It's a transparency nightmare because you don't have the same protections in terms of getting records and handling, quality of life things. They're constantly facing lawsuits over medical neglect and living conditions. They're getting sued by former employees. There was an incredible article, I believe it was on Mother Jones a few years ago, about a journalist who went undercover for 4 months to work for Corrections Corporation of America, CCA, which has since changed its name, and I am purely speculating. This is my opinion, and it's, whatever. I believe they had to change their name to CoreCivic because they had so much negative publicity. But this journalist went undercover for 4 months, worked as a guard, talked about how his name was all over the internet, and they didn't even research who he was or do any type of check on him. And then he just revealed how the inmates were treated, how the guards were treated, and just the abomination that the system is. So, of course, I am super happy to see that these banks want to cut off funding and revenue streams, and the way that, because they need this easily accessible money to operate on a day-to-day basis, from what I understand. But I'm super ticked that illegal immigrants are and I'm not this person who's like, well, take care of our people first. That's not usually how I approach things. I approach things from a human side, but I'm really ticked that these businesses are willing to go to bat for illegal immigrants and what's happening at the border when this has been happening in 49 states, because only one state has banned private prisons.
Yeah, and that was where I was going to go with it is they don't give a damn about how prisoners are treated. They don't. This is not a response to poor conditions. They're not taking a moral stand. It's popular right now to stand against these the detention of illegal immigrants and stuff like that. This is not J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, SunTrust, BNP, Fifth Third Bank, Barclays, and PNC standing up for human rights. They don't give a damn about human rights. It's them trying to make hay, political hay off of the public outrage over the detention of border jumpers. And I'm getting tired, especially as a gun guy, of banks getting involved in politics. We won't bank gun stores. We won't do this. Do your damn job. What they're doing is legal. What needs to happen is legislatures around the country need to get rid of these prisons, and for very good reason. Banks, do your damn job. You're in the business of making money for your shareholders. Well, and when you do stuff like this, you hurt my stock portfolio because I own bank stocks. I think I do, at least.
Well, you did yesterday, but you don't know how it is today. You never know. But it's just frustrating because it's not a principled approach to anything. This is 100% about Trump because, I know a lot of people, and probably a lot of people on this show, I had a lot of problems with Obama as our president. But one of the things he was doing on the way out the door was reducing the use of federal prisons or private prisons and cutting back on certain justice reform initiatives that most of us would support. And then when Trump got elected, the private prison industry stocks soared, and they've been on an uptick until all this stuff happened. And I think he undid the executive orders or whatever that were put in place, which is it's not his right to do, but if that's his prerogative, that's his prerogative. But this is totally personal. And it's a terrible reason because it's not going to impact, it's not going to have the impact at the state level where it really needs to happen. We have 3 private prisons in Georgia alone without considering Stewart Detention Center, which is the federal immigration center in Stewart County. We have 3 that are awful, awful places for people to work and for people to live. And nobody gives a dang about that. But we're going to use this platform now. Now it's worth compromising financial contracts. Now it's worth taking a stand against a man in a White House instead of actual humanity.
Yeah, this has absolutely nothing to do with human rights. Has nothing to do with cleaning up prisons. Has nothing to do with reforming prisons. It has everything to do with getting their name on. We're anti-Trump, and it's going to backfire. It's going to hurt their stock. Because let me tell you something, the people out there protesting the streets, they don't care about your stock, about your shareholders. When you start talking about withholding billions in loans, and that's what banks do. They take money in at low interest and lend it out at higher interest. And when you take a segment of your clientele, just say, we're not going to do business with you, shut up and do your job.
Well, and they're so arrogant about it. I mean, if you read some of these quotes about it,
the CEO of Core Civic, listen to this. He said, despite many of the bank's claims of conducting a thorough review process, they clearly bow down to a small group of activists protest this. This is the Core Civic guy, not the banks, but they clearly bow down to a small group of activists protesting and conducting targeted social media campaigns pushing false information rather than engage in a constructive dialogue about the facts. The most disappointing aspect of these politicized bank decisions, disingenuous activist efforts, and no solution proposals from politicians is the people who they ultimately hurt. It hurts the American people because of poor policies are being discussed, so that's not correct grammar, made or awarded based on misinformation rather than an open and honest dialogue on the challenge at hand. Okay, what? First of all, he's not even defending anything. He's not saying anything of value. He's just pointing fingers, and he's right about the misinformed activist thing, but both sides here are complete jerks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look,
in my opinion,
you and I agree. There should be no private corporation detaining American citizens or anybody. That's right. It's if
or anybody. I mean, they put quotas in their contract, minimum beds. They get a discounted rate if they have 95, 97, or 99% occupancy in those beds. They have an incentive to keep people in them, whether they be illegals or Americans. That is a terrible way to do business. And you want to talk about a crisis at the border, and everyone's like, well, if you don't want to come here, or if you don't want to be in prison, you should just leave. It's not that easy when you're talking about a private facility that you can't leave because somebody's making a dollar off of it.
Right. And look, I'm for privatizing just about everything. The state depriving you of freedom has the onerous to house you. If they're going to pass a law that says I'm going to take you out of your home and lock you away, they are responsible for locking you away. And I'm guessing this has everything to do, the origin of this has everything to do with not having legacy cost, with prison employees being state employees versus you just pay a contract and they're the ones that have to worry about retirement and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, in Georgia at least, with the pensions, it is still cheaper to pay state employees. The study, the audits found it. And California, I mean, this whole thing is a mess. California, they're talking about pulling their pension fund and divesting from the, quote, industry because of the activities at the border. Like, it makes me so mad. It really bothers me that people are taking sides. If you're supporting the private prison companies because you back Trump, shame on you. If you're listening and you support the treatment of illegal immigrants, so you're upset.
Oh no, and I'll tell you what.
Shame on you.
I got booted out of the Paulding County Republican Facebook page because I said something about freedom after I was making contributions to Republicans running for office because I'm too libertarian, because they want to toe the president's line. No matter what he does is good. Ban bump stocks. Well, thank God you did that, Mr. President. The president was talking to the NRA about mandatory background checks, which is de facto registration, and they're just eating the crap he throws at them with a spoon because he puts an R after his name. And these prisons would be no different. If a Republican says we need private prisons, they're going to go, oh, we need private prisons, because they have no ability to think for themselves, Kathy Helms.
Mm-hmm. It's despicable.
It is. And any independent thinker, because I'm no Democrat, I'm not a true libertarian, and I won't be a bootlicker. So I consider myself a Republicitarian, but that is any independent thought is shunned in politics, because we all get in our corners and we all get in our trenches and we go, okay, this is what our team is doing. That's a tangent that's not related to prisons, other than prison of people's minds.
Yeah, I could yell about it for the whole hour.
I mean, yeah. But, that's, once again, we have not told each other why we're wrong. We're both right. So.
I mean, again, obviously.
Another federal court allows warrantless cell phone searches at the U.S. border. The U.S. Supreme Court has long recognized border search exemption to the Fourth Amendment, a warrant requirement, but has not had a chance to issue a ruling that applies to smartphones and other high tech.
So, what we're dealing with right now is a bunch of U.S. District Court rulings on what is not, and they're not exclusive to the border. I mean, there's been cases, I think one of the 2017 cases that we're going to talk about was just at an airport with customs and what they're allowed to do, what privileges they have over revoking our rights temporarily, because even though you're in the middle of the country, it's still considered border protection. So, don't just keep in mind that this is Mexico and Texas. This is a much broader issue, and it can definitely impact people. It's just, obviously, it's easy to drive across the border. But I want people to think about, don't just think about what we hear on the
news. In 2017, more than 30,000 people had their phones, laptops, tablets searched before they could enter or leave the country.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't think that that's very many. But we're not talking about, sending it through to make sure there's no bomb in it. We're talking about unlocking it and going through your text messages and your call log. We're talking about plugging it into a device that decodes everything on it and gives them data that they are legally required to dispose of, but often don't. This is without a warrant, by the way.
Right. Look, this is you coming back from vacationing in Europe, a trip to Antigua, anywhere. If you've held a passport in your hand and you have a stamp in it, that was giving them permission to force unlock your devices and just go through it to see what they find. This is not a dog indicated. This is not a reason that, hey, we need to search your stuff. The dog has picked up on the pear that you threw in your luggage on the way out of that country. This is, hey, let me see your phone because I want to.
Or your computer, or your work iPad, or whatever. I mean, whatever.
What if you're an attorney? What if you're an attorney and you've got privileged client information on your laptop, your any other device, and now the government has access to it, and they're going to quote unquote destroy it immediately? When has that ever been the policy for the government to throw away any sort of evidence?
Well, and I think one of the more frustrating things for me is that this isn't a law or something that's outlined somewhere. This was a directive from the Department of Homeland Security to Customs and Border Protection that they issued this directive and this rule to them, and they followed it, and someone challenged it, and then the court said, you know what, that's reasonable because CBP holds that searches of electronic devices at the border are integral to a determination of an individual's intentions upon entry and provide additional information relevant to admissibility determinations under immigration laws. And they said it's a crucial tool for detecting evidence for terrorism and other national security matters. And then it can also reveal information about financial and commercial crimes. First of all, if I'm just traveling across the state line from Alabama to Georgia and I'm a citizen, my rights are intact if I'm not committing a crime. You can't look through my phone to see if I've been committing financial crimes. So what's the difference if I'm a lawful citizen not committing a crime and I'm crossing the border? And this doesn't even just have to be like crossing the border or coming in on a plane. There are plenty of instances where somebody is close to the border and they get pulled over by these officers and they're subject to the search because they're within a certain proximity. So this isn't just like you could be carrying, drugs across.
Well, I think it also has to do with cryptocurrency. Is if you're crossing the border with $100,000, thanks to our illustrious federal government, you can't get bills larger than 100. So $100,000 looks like $100,000. But you can carry $100,000 in cryptocurrency in a thumb drive, and that's often how it's done. Is if you want to travel the world and keep money on you, cryptocurrency has been a great way to do that, and this is their way of sure,
as it should be.
It shouldn't be your business if I'm carrying $100,000 on me. It's mine. Where'd you get it? Up yours. None of your business.
Having the money is not a crime, and it shouldn't be a crime, and it shouldn't subject you to anything else. And it's just baffling to me that people think this is okay. But again, emotions at the border, and if for security of a few.
No, it's that they don't care.
It's important to catch that guy with the counterfeit jerseys.
Hey, look, just like we were talking about the last story.
Yeah,
we're talking about the last story.
Your liberties.
If you mention the border, you get everybody's emotions up. When you mention border, and then now we're talking to the other side from where the banks are, is everybody goes, yeah, search them, make sure there are no terrorists. Well, there's no exemption for U.S. passport holders, for American citizens, saying, well, we obviously need to check people coming from foreign countries more than we do American citizens. So, hey, Bob and Sally, you go. Ahmed, we want to see your phone. That's not what they're doing, because that would never stand legal muster. Is they're just going to search everybody, and whatever shakes out. And it is a very 1984 Orwellian future that we're in, where it is, let me see your phone. And we've got to the point where our devices hold a lot of private information. You cheat.
When, we mentioned the 2017 case, and there was a 2018 case, and what just came down the pipelines in the Ninth Circuit just last week in United States v. Cano, they established that all you need is reasonable suspicion, which is a lower threshold than probable cause, to do a forensic search. And that there can be a suspicionless, that's their wording, a suspicionless manual search of cell phones for all other circumstances. Just scrolling through it. But, I mean, what justifies reasonable suspicion when you're already conducting a manual search? This is just an avenue, a direct pathway to do the forensic search on everyone, and they're downloading your data. Now, I understand that the NSA and all those people already have it. That's not the point.
Well, they don't necessarily have access to your notes, to your, obviously if you put things in the cloud, but your Word docs, your Excel docs, the stuff that you have especially again, let's talk about an attorney, somebody who has got audio notes after he met with a client. Now the state has all of those. What is privileged information they have access to. I don't know where this is going to stop. It's going to stop with somebody who, when they do try to do that with an attorney, the attorney goes, "Nope, I guess we'll just sit here to the cell until we get a judge involved." It's going to take somebody, because most people, particularly when you fly in from like Europe, you're already tired, or you fly in from Asia, you're tired, you're pissed off, you've already been shoved in a little tiny airplane seat, and they say, unlock your phone. You're like, why? Well, we need to see it. You know what? Just get me out of here. And apathy gives compliance, because you just, at that point, just let me go home. I'm tired. It's been a 36-hour day. I just want to go home. And the fact is, I've been, I won't say around the world. I've been to a lot of places, and most places where I go and I clear customs, it's a wave. Just go. You know, and this country is not only can I check your bag, but give me your phone. Sorry, Jess.
And there's been a lot of cases. No, it's fine. I was just going to say there's been a lot of cases in the last few years, and I haven't read them all, but I've read several. And then there's only one judge at the district level, or in the Court of Appeals, and I think 11th Circuit, who had any type of dissent. And her name was Judge Joe Pryor, and her explanation was get a warrant. She's the only, that it doesn't matter who is appointed or by whom they're appointed. They're all holding this ridiculous opinion. We're talking about American
this
citizens.
is one of those cases where I think you'll see a mixed bag if it does get to the Supreme Court, where you're going to see Gorsuch and Ginsburg up against Roberts and Kavanaugh, where you're going to see really conservative and really liberal team up against team players and folks like and statists like Roberts and honestly Kavanaugh and probably Kagan. So it'd be a very interesting split should this go to the Supreme Court, because it's not going to be a long party lines of who appointed you. It's going to be on principle, and it would be very, very interesting to see where it shakes out. And I have a feeling that Roberts is going to be on the wrong side of it.
Well, and I know we're running long here, but there has been bipartisan legislation, backed by Rand Paul in the Senate, and then there's a House companion bill to stop this of citizens at the border. It would limit, because they can take your phone or your devices too after the search, on certain suspicion. So it would stop, or it would limit when they can seize it. And then it would also keep the border officials from saying, no, you can't enter if someone refuses to give their password or their fingerprint or their PIN or whatever. So there's real protections in it. I don't know that it will go anywhere, but it's as a result of all of these lawsuits that continually rule on the side of the government. And so
yeah, I'll be interested to see if that actually
watching.
goes anywhere, and I would think that'd be a veto. And this is not a pro or anti-Trump or pro or anti-Democrat or anything else. It's once you have that power and you are in that seat, you believe that you have that you have the answer to everything. But at risk of beating that to death, Jessica, closing thoughts.
Yeah, so speaking of privacy, I was reading an article last week about just all the different, places where we're subject to surveillance and everything like that. There is actually a clothing line that is created to throw off different, I guess you could say, databases or collection ports. I don't know what you would call it. I'm not a tech person. Anyway, they're just like, they have a skirt that has a bunch of license plates on it. It's supposed to, it's by adversarial fashion, but it's supposed to ping when there's a license plate scanner on the back of a car instead of, like if you're walking on the street, it would interject with that. I don't know. And then they have prints for shirts that would throw off facial recognition and all of that. And like, it's funny, but it's also a really brilliant idea. And I think that the more that artificial intelligence and surveillance becomes part of our everyday lives, the more you're going to see things like this, just like how wallets have the RFID stuff to block. I think this will become a norm for us because technology is taking over and invading our privacy. And so I'll probably start with the license plate scanner skirt.
There was an underwear company that came out that was allegedly would not show your junk when you go through the airport, and all they would see is perv. Something like that. Of course, whenever I got to the scanners, they say put your hands over your head. I get the 2 middle fingers up. Not that really matters. They don't really care.
I don't go through the scanner.
You just want some human contact.
No, that's not it. Ew.
Hey.
Ew. I don't think you should get a closing thought after that, but
t-shirt
go ahead.
That says it's not gay. This TSA. So a topless woman in Connecticut has found herself under arrest. She was drunk, tanning topless, obviously, which makes her awesome. Sunbather identified as 28-year-old Anna Lee Halderman became belligerent and proceeded to take off the bottom portion of her bathing suit, exposing her buttocks when confronted by a woman with children. Now, this is where I have, after, quote, an extensive investigation, end quote, police were able to identify Alderman. They say in a subsequent interview that she stated that she did not recall what she may have done on the date in question, but apologized for her behavior. And here is the charge. She is charged with risk of injury to a minor. Now, those have got to be some tatas right there if they're dangerous to small children. I mean, I'm upset there's no picture to go along with this. Risk of injury to a minor. And breach of peace. Breach of peace, if you're drunk and belligerent and yelling, whatever. But the risk of injury to a minor, that could follow her forever for laying topless on a beach. Now, keep in mind, just about every mother goes topless in front of a baby. It's really hard to breastfeed with a sweater on. The risk of injury, I don't know, Jessica. Aside from the booby jokes, man, it sounds like they're just trying to push this woman into a plea bargain by charging her with the worst thing possible.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way.
And I've been to beaches in Europe and other places, and no children were harmed. I mean, you can debate whether or not women should be able to go topless on beaches. That's fine. That's a separate charge. But the only thing that got me on this story was the risk of injury to a minor. So
I think most people would find, even the people affiliated with the Faith and Freedom Coalition would think
easy
that was
now,
a little bit
easy.
Too much.
All right. Well, I'm glad we did get a really positive segment in there with Robin Stern. We certainly thank him for coming on. For Jessica Szilagyi, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.